Welcome to Freedom Through Fitness, the podcast where we explore how strength, movement, and resilience can transform lives. I'm your host, Megan Batchelor, founder of Focused Personal Training, and each week I sit down with real people, local voices, and expert guests to uncover the true power of fitness, not as a way to chase perfection, but to reclaim confidence, health, and freedom. Based in Southampton, UK, and sharing stories that inspire everywhere. Let's get into it. To close out this first series of Freedom Through Fitness, we're bringing you a conversation that speaks right to the heart of why this podcast exists. My guest today is Piers Day, subconscious coach, speaker, and founder of Suffolk Hypnotherapy, as well as the new initiative Out of the Darkness, which supports men in talking openly about their mental health. I met Piers through a network of small business owners and was instantly struck by how open, passionate, and generous he is. His work is focused on helping people break through deep subconscious patterns that are holding them back, whether that's trauma, grief, self-limiting beliefs, or long-term struggles with health and identity. This is an honest, often emotional, and incredibly real conversation about mental health, physical transformation, self-worth, and why it's so vital that we speak up for ourselves and for the people we care about. Piers shares how tragic loss of close friends sparked his journey into the field, how he personally turned his health around after a life-threatening experience, and how small steps can lay the foundation for lifelong change. Whether you're in a tough place yourself or want to better support the people around you, this episode is full of insight and heart. And I'm delighted to share that since recording, Piers' Out of the Darkness project is now gaining traction, helping more people find the support they need. So, for the last time in this series, let's get into it.
And I went, oh my God, I'm English. And English people don't often take their clothes off in public. And so I thought, what the hell?
Hello, so welcome to the podcast, Piers Day, who is founder of Suffolk Hypnotherapy and the creator and brainchild behind the brand new program Out of the Darkness, which is aiming to get men talking about their mental health. So welcome to the podcast, Piers.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on board.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. Obviously, you and I know each other through crossing paths at various business networks. And I think the story that you have to tell, the perspective that you have to tell, both personally but also professionally, is going to be so valuable to the people listening. So I'm really excited to share that. So what I want to do, first of all, to help people to get to know you, is I want to rewind right back to the beginning and kind of think about, where were you when the idea of getting into this line of work first occurred to you, and what was the situation then?
I used to be in property, and various things happened in the late 80s, and there's a property crash. So I closed my agency, and then I went to Australia. And the night before, 2 nights before I went to Australia, I had a beer with a great mate of mine, and he said, God, Piers, you're so lucky. Have fun. I'll see you in 6 months. And as I took off, he pulled the trigger and he shot himself.
Wow.
And he kept his depression so deeply hidden. And I just completely fell to pieces. And I can remember sitting in a place called Noosa in Australia and on the East Coast. And I was looking out at sea, and these guys are walking past, and they said, "You all right, mate?" And I just said, "Yeah, one of my best friends has just committed suicide." And he's the third one of my friends to do that. And they said, "You ought to come down to Sydney with us." So I went down to Sydney with them, which is quite a long way from Noosa. And we ended up on a retreat in the Blue Mountains above Sydney. And we arrived in this most beautiful valley, and there was a stunning house on the side of the hill and the river below. And we got out there, and as soon as we got out in the minibus, they all took their clothes off. And I went, oh my God, I'm English. And English people don't often take their clothes off in public. And so I thought, what the hell? And for about an hour, I was walking around in shorts without a t-shirt. And then I thought, you've got to be in it to win it. And we had 12 days there with no clothes on. And I got into I started the world of personal growth, personal development. I've never heard of it before. And when I came back to England, I looked at why people got depressed and what would make them pull the trigger. And as soon as I got into that, I started learning about mindsets and mind control and how people can have all these toxic feelings and toxic problems in their life, which literally kills them. And I came across hypnosis, and so I booked onto the Cambridge College of Hypnotherapy. And that opened up a huge, great warren of opportunities for me to learn more. And since then, I have flown all over well, not all over the globe, but most places on the globe, whether it's the Philippines, whether it's America, whether it's Australia, whether it's, London even, to learn more about mental health. So I describe myself as Suffolk Hypnotherapy, but I don't often use hypnosis anymore because there are other things involved.
It was such a visceral and personal experience that lit that spark for you. What do you think that personal experience brings for you to the profession you now find yourself in, that you're able to help your clients with more?
I think there are there's two answers to that question. One is to stop people from doing it, but number two is to help the people who are left behind. I was completely floored. I really was, and I can remember that sitting on that beach on a stone beside the beach in Noosa, and I was just lost. And I've never been in that mental free fall before, and it's a horrible place to be. Something broke inside me that needed mending, and as I went through my grief, a long way away from all my loved ones in the UK, as I went through it, I suddenly realized there is another way. There is support out there. And, back in the late 80s, early 90s, there wasn't so much publicity about mental health. I can remember, was it 3 years ago? I was on a course down in Wales, and I wanted to call myself Piers Day Mental Health. I was like, you can't possibly call that. Everyone's going to think you're a loony or you're dealing with loonies. And suddenly, in the last 2 or 3 years, we're now 2025, the mental health picture's changed. Mm-hmm. And my aim is basically to help as many people as possible, because having been in a horrible position myself, I wasn't depressed or anything like that. I was just a complete shock. But since then, talking to people all over the world about mental health issues, and everybody, I didn't realize, I thought I was the only one. Everybody has bad days. Everyone goes through bad periods of their life. Some people can get through it.
Is there a big connection, do you think, with this idea of having a good sense of self, and also the beliefs that you have attached to yourself in terms of what you feel your identity is? And I know that, you talk with a lot of the people that you work with in terms of recognizing those beliefs. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Let me explain it a different way. Two kids in a sandpit, and one's called a poo-poo head. And he may go, ha, 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 you're a poo-poo head too. And they go and run and they play. Another kid, you're a poo-poo head, and they go, oh, and they're mortally wounded. And that starts triggering limiting beliefs and horrible thoughts of it starts the I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. And people then start comparing themselves to others. And all you have to do is look on modern day Facebooks and social media that everyone puts on there how wonderful life is. I've literally sat here sometimes feeling like absolute rubbish, and then I have to do a presentation to record it for one of my channels, and I have to literally just dump the bad mindset and pick up the go and hello, and the smiley clown face. But it's that face behind that mindset that I didn't know existed until I went through problems myself. And there are so many people out there who are desperate for help that there's no shortage of help out there, and there are no shortage of people wanting help.
So when you found yourself in that place, that you with hindsight can look back and see that you were in a place of needing help, how did you come to the realization that actually it was time to ask for that help?
Of these people walking down the beach in Australia, literally they changed my life. They just went, hang on a second, Piers, hello, hang on a second, mate, are you all right? And apparently I was really pale, and I looked as if I was going to go and drown myself. I wasn't, but they sort of picked up my very negative mindset, my very negative energy. And literally I was completely distraught. One of my best friends was no longer here.
What's really interesting about two of the perspectives and scenarios you've just put there is this idea of like a butterfly effect, a small trigger that can set off a sequence of events or a sequence of beliefs about oneself that can augment massively over time. And yet a seemingly small action can set you on one path or another. In one scenario, you've got your two kids in the sandpit, and one of them just has an offhand comment that perhaps they're probably just repeating because it's been said to them, and they're the person that laughed it off, and they thought that would be the same for the other person. And yet that sets someone off on a very negative path.
And
Yeah.
yet for you, when you were on that beach, that person, that group of they could have just walked past, but that very small decision that they thought, actually, no, I'm going to ask if he's okay, completely changed your trajectory as well. Bringing it around to that conversation around health and well-being, whether that be, my background more physically, your background more mentally. I want to go into sort of your own story of taking care of not only your mental health, but your physical health as well. So having, with the benefit of knowing you personally, I've seen a big transformation for you. And what was that trigger for you then in terms of your physical transformation that you've undergone over the last few months? If you can kind of tell us about that, what was the trigger and what has happened since?
I stopped smoking in 1995 and I found 6 stone. I found 6 stone and I've been playing with diets every 1st of January. Oh, yes, new year, new me, and all that sort of stuff. You name it, I've tried it. During COVID, I nearly died. They wanted to ventilate me. And I said, okay, leave me for an hour. And I closed my eyes and I took myself from a really deep hypnosis. And I basically said to my mind and body, I said, look, you guys sort it out. Well, I'm either going to wake up and I'm going to be okay, or I'm just going to die. And my level of oxygen in my blood went from 62, which is borderline coma, up to 68 in an hour. And they said, right, keep doing it, keep doing it. And I kept putting myself, I don't know where I went, but I just said to my mind, body, spirit, whatever you call it, sort the problem out. Just everything started getting better and better and better. And within 24 hours, I was up into 96, 98% oxygen, which is where you want to be. That was the start of me realizing your mind. I mean, I've known it for years, but it was my first personal experience of healing myself through the work I do. Because like a lot of therapists and a lot of people in coaches and all that sort of stuff, we're really good at helping other people, but we're not so good at working on ourselves. And we spend our whole time giving, but we don't like receiving. And I've come across this with hundreds and hundreds of therapists all over the years who I mentor and I help. And when I had COVID, I had blood clots and all that sort of stuff, and I was visualizing them disappearing, and they did. And I wanted to learn more about meditation and the power of the mind and the mind body spirit connection. So I took myself off to northern India for 2.5 months, and I was living quite high up in the mountains to get my lungs better, but also to learn more about meditation. Cut through to this time last year, and I was knocking on the door of 150 kilos, and I woke up one morning and I could hardly breathe. I dialed 999 and they took me in and I felt my heart was going to come out my chest, and I was in what they call an atrial fibrillation, where my heart was beating at 157 beats a minute. When they put you on this table and they have put all these wires all around you and all these beep, beep, beep machines, I suddenly got really scared and I thought, this is quite serious. I thought COVID was serious. This is really serious. They basically said, right, he said, we're going to have to operate on you, but we won't do it if you're fat. Lose weight or die.
As you're listening, you might be feeling that spark, feeling inspired to explore how fitness could become part of your own life and help you to live with more energy, confidence and choice. If that's you, I'd love to invite you to visit freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk, where you can book a free discovery call with the Focused PT team of experts and find out what working together could look like. No pressure, just a real conversation, because you deserve to feel strong. You deserve to move through life feeling proud and not punished, and it's never too late to put yourself first. And now, back to the conversation.
Okay. The rest of my life, or the rest of forever in a coffin, or lose weight. So I lost 6 stone.
Wow.
And I did it really, really quickly with a thing called Lighter Life, which is not sustainable, but it just drops your weight down. And since I've come off it, my weight's gone up and down, up and down. I'm relearning how to eat.
I think a big part of that is because if you have spent a long period of your life carrying a lot of excess weight, it goes back to this self-belief and that identity, like I am this guy. How are you finding that in terms of, identifying as somebody who does take better care of what they're putting into their body and how they move their body?
I'm not allowed to exercise at the moment until I have a second heart operation. They're worried that my heart will literally go straight back into fibrillation, which is it's a shame. But I'll try and walk between 1 and 2 miles a day. Not so I don't get completely out of breath, but I just get a good system. I got my heart pumping quite nicely. I've had to relearn what my body needs, and I've been working with. Hannah Longstaff, who's one of the top eating disorder people in the UK, and she's fantastic fantastic at what she does, and I've been working with her. I'm now working with a Royal Marine PT instructor, and literally he's used to whipping Marine cadets into shape. And when I work with him, and we set really small goals. He said, Piers, within a year, at the end of the year, I'm going to be kicking your ass, but at the moment, we just got to get you moving. And so I'm working with him. I've just started doing that. It is re-educating your lifestyle.
I think a big part of it is this concept, and I think you probably touch on it a lot with your own customers or the people that you work with, this concept of an outcome goal being made up of a series of process goals. And so identifying what just the next right step is. And instead of saying, I'm working with a military boot camp style coach, I suddenly need to embody that whole life. It's about breaking it down into what is the next best step for you. And realizing the difference you can make in a year is so much greater than you think. And yet the difference that you can make in a week, we often overestimate and overpressure ourselves to achieve.
It's, jigsaw puzzles made up of pieces. Put one piece in at a time. There are loads of pictures you can use. If you go for a marathon, most people can't get up out of a chair and run 24 or 27 miles. They start by running to the street corner and walking back. And then the next day they go to the street corner and they run back. Mm-hmm. And you start building up. And it's completely re-educating your mind, body, and spirit.
And building your own sense of self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to achieve something. And
yes.
The only way to feed that is by a collection of little wins. Because if you've spent a long time telling yourself you can't suddenly say to yourself that you can. All those little steps, all of those little wins, the walk to the corner and back. It might have been small, but I did it. And I made the promise to myself and I kept it. So now I'm the kind of person who keeps my promises. And so that starts to snowball and becomes that virtuous cycle rather than the vicious cycle that perhaps you felt you were stuck in before.
It is, but it's amazing how changing little habits can change your complete mindset. There was a video, and if you look up on YouTube, it's called Making Your Bed. Mm-hmm. And making your bed, when you get up in the morning, if you make your bed and you say, right, I'm going to make my bed every day. If you make your bed first thing in the morning, you've achieved success. And you go downstairs or, wherever it is, and you go and you carry on the rest of your day. But when you go back into your bedroom, your bed's made. Therefore, you come and it's got a nice feeling. And something as simple as doing that, and I do that now every day, when I wake up, straighten the room, make the bed and that sort of stuff. And it's just starting lots of little positive things. And you're just building a solid platform to launch yourself from. And there are some days I really can't be bothered to. Mm-hmm. But I go, no, okay, the 5 things I have to do are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I do them. And later in the day, I'll go, God, thank God I did that. I didn't let myself down.
Promise.
What we say to ourselves is the most important thing.
And how do you see the interaction of exercise in the mental health of the people that you work with, and how that impacts them and their mood and this belief in oneself to do something?
Right. Exercise, as you know, releases endorphins. Endorphins, little happy firework displays, in your head. So if you are feeling, I can't be bothered, you're not going to get any pleasure out of anything. Just doing something like running up and down stairs. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. Just doing something very simple will start the process of getting blood flowing around your body, and you start feeling more alive. As soon as you start feeling more alive, the endorphins are released into your system. As soon as endorphins are released into your system, you feel lighter, you feel happier.
And it's that sense of confidence, I think, as well, that comes from having a confidence in your body. It filters into so many areas of your life. Perhaps you volunteer to present at that meeting at work, and because you presented at that meeting at work, you've raised your profile and you get put forward for the promotion, and that sense of self is really connected with taking care of your body, as well as your mind. It's also interconnected.
But fitness, if you've got a fit body and an unfit mind, you're not going to achieve anything. Mm-hmm. If you've got a fit mind and unfit body, you're not going to achieve anything. You've got to find that balance. And we're not all, can I use the word gym monkey? But we're not all gym monkey. We're not all bodybuilders. You don't have to be. But if people start looking after themselves and being proud of who they are, they're going to stand up straighter.
Yeah.
If you're standing up straighter, your body language and everything, you feel more powerful. And as soon as you start feeling more powerful, you start saying nicer things to yourself. Because what you say to yourself is the most important thing. There have been days we've had some really horrible weather here in the UK in the last couple of weeks. And every day I go out with the dogs. And I've had snow and rain coming in at this angle. And you go, oh, God, and you put your coat and you go outside and you go for a walk, and the dogs don't really notice whether it's raining or not. They're having a lovely time running around, etc. And you come back in and you go, oh, I'm glad I did that. And I smile when I can't come in. you hang everything over, up to dry off, and you go, yep, okay, I've succeeded in something.
I think it's interesting though, because it's almost in the act of taking care of someone or something else, we are willing to do more than taking care of ourselves.
Exactly.
If you'd woken up, if you were a regular walker and you woke up and you saw the weather outside, you thought perhaps not today, but you've got dogs, you've got responsibilities, you have to go out, and so you just do it. And
Yeah.
and so I guess a big part of your work must be to start raising the profile of oneself, if that makes sense. To raise the importance of taking care of yourself and the language you use to yourself. Is that something that you see as a really important aspect of where you're going with your work?
When I'm working with people, I make them accountable to do certain things. And they're normally relatively easy things. Like if I'm working with someone, I don't do much of it anymore. But when I'm working with someone with weight control, I say, can you keep a food diary? I just want the times and what you weigh. And I just look for patterns. And so, I couldn't be bothered. I go, okay, so you can't be bothered to help yourself. So you pay me lots of money to come here and sit and not be bothered to do it yourself. And go, no, you put it like that, Piers. I realise I've made a mistake. I said, great, okay, so next week you're going to food diary. Yes. And they come and they say, look, I thought I got my food diary. And they're happy because they've done it. I never go, oh, dearie me, you naughty person. It's me saying, okay, for instance, I didn't do my food diary because I couldn't be asked. I couldn't be bothered. Something cropped up. There wasn't time. If you don't make time in your life for yourself, who's going to make time for you? So you've got to put yourself and prioritize yourself above everything else.
So where are you headed with this new project then, this Out of the Dark? Like, what's your mission with that in particular?
Mission with that particular is to get young people talking. The three friends of mine who sadly no longer with us, one pulled the trigger when he was 15, 16, and the other 18, 19. And then the more recent, the one 25, 30 years ago, but he was 27, 28. I like working with young people because my belief is if I can save them, I can save anybody. And so I deal a lot with teenagers, a lot with young men. Yes, I work with ladies as well, girls as well, but girls normally have some form of support. Men very rarely open up. And I want to make it that it's so simple to actually ask for help, because if it's going to save a life, well, I'd much prefer to actually spend 10 minutes with someone saving their life than anything else. Because to me, that's more important.
And it's such a vital foundational part of our lives, that adolescence. I think as older adults, like whether that's 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, it's easy to look back with rose-tinted glasses and kind of go, oh, to be young, to have your whole future out in front of you, to have all that choice, that freedom, that lack of responsibility. I think perhaps that mindset leads to people overlooking the mental difficulties that people of that age are encountering. And I think possibly even more so in modern society than perhaps even 10, 15 years ago when I was that age. I think the pressures on young people and the idea of perhaps feeling like there's no way out is greater now than
Yes.
it has been.
I mean, nowadays kids are quite lucky because mental health is talked about. Certainly when I was young, it wasn't. If someone had depression, they were sent off to some form of sanatorium somewhere, and other people just kept it buried. Now, whether we've got more depression now than we did have then, I have no idea, because I wasn't in this business then. But I start looking back at things that have happened to me in the past, and when I work with certain people, I use regression, and we go back and we sort out the problems that they picked up when they were children. And you think there is so much suffering out there and people keep it buried and it just becomes more and more toxic. So the project is literally getting people to talk about it or saying, hello, can I have help, please? I mean, if you drive your car and the car starts making a funny noise, you go, oh my God, the car's going to break down, and you take it to a garage or you fix it yourself. And if, when you take it to the garage, you go, well, I hope it's 150 quid. I don't want to pay much more than that to get it fixed. And they come back and they said, oh, it's £700. And I go, okay, that's not too bad. Here's your 700 quid to the garage, to the mechanic. I get people ringing me up and they say, how much are they going to cost to get rid of my depression? And I tell them, they go, oh, that's expensive. I can't afford that. People prioritize things instead of themselves.
I think it's a matter of tools. I think tools and experience as well. That I again, a similar analogy. Quite often, I'll sort of say, the comparison of having a personal trainer, a coach, someone who knows you versus a gym membership is kind of like your gym membership is just tools, it's equipment, and so it's kind of like saying, well, why does a personal trainer cost so much more than a gym membership? Well, why does a plumber cost so much more than a pipe?
Yes.
Because it's somebody who is going to be able to take you on that journey and get you to the end result.
Yeah, it is, but also they're going to push you. They're going to take you out of your comfort zone. Now, I've sat on these pedal machines in gyms and you go, oh, my legs are beginning to hurt a bit. I'll slow down a bit. And actually what you want is someone to say, go on, keep pedaling, keep pedaling, keep pedaling. Because if you keep pedaling at 2 months down the line, your legs aren't going to get tired. And you have to be pushed, or most people have to be pushed and pushed and pushed. because these PTs in gyms or wherever they happen to be, or whether it's a business coach, whatever it is, the people who are trying to change your mental mindset to be more successful, they will see things in you that you've never seen in yourself.
They believe in you before you can believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
Before we've had that time to build that sense of ability, that sense of confidence.
Yeah.
You need someone to light a spark under you and
Yes,
externally believe.
If you're listening and thinking that's all well and good for them, but I feel miles away from that version of fitness, you're not alone. We know what it's like to feel stuck, not to know where to begin, or to wonder if it's even possible for someone like you. The Focused PT team is here to meet you exactly where you are. No judgment, no pressure. Just a real conversation about where you're at, where you want to go, and how we can help you to finally break through what's held you back. Because putting yourself first isn't selfish. It's how you build a stronger future for yourself and for those you care about. You are worthy of more energy, more confidence, and more freedom. And your first step is just a few clicks away at freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk. Now, let's get back to today's guest.
There are people out there who necessarily don't need a coach, but they're very, very few and far between.
It's fun. Sometimes, as mad as it is, we'll put some information out on socials to support people and to really speak to the people that need the help. And you know what? In the same way that people struggling with their mental health won't say anything about it, the people struggling with their fitness, they won't be the ones that put the comments underneath. They won't say anything. And the people who aren't struggling with their fitness will feel the need to say, I don't struggle, I go to the gym all the time. And if anything, that just feeds the mentality of I'm the only one that struggles. And so that's why having these conversations is so important and making it feel so much more accessible.
Yeah,
So
round up in Bury St Edmunds, where I'm from, there is the gym group is one of the places right in the middle of Bury. And round the corner from there's a Costa. And you often see people going for the gym and then going to Costa afterwards and having bagels and hot chocolates and that sort of stuff. There are two ways of looking at that. Yeah, they've earned it because they've burnt the calories. But actually, when they go there, they're undoing all the work that they've done. They've got the right, I've got the, I can get my body fitter, but actually, I want to lose weight, but I'm not taking responsibility for the foods that I eat. And it's that balance that one has to get for everything in life.
you need a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
Because so much of the time, the phrases that we often hear, I've tried everything, it doesn't work for me. I've tried it all and I've tried really hard, and I'm sure they have tried really hard, but you need someone with an outside perspective to shine a light on places that could be those simple tweaks, those little levers to pull that suddenly give you momentum forwards again.
Something I did with a client a couple of weeks ago, and I said, when you come in, I'm just going to have my mobile phone now, I'm just going to film you talking. She said, absolutely fine. So we were chatting like we are now, and I had the phone, I record it, and I said, right, press stop. And I said, right, you come and sit in the chair here. So she became the therapist. I leant against the one. I said, now watch the video and pretend that person is sitting in the chair in front. What advice would you give her? And she came up with this most amazing advice for herself that she'd never thought about before. And sometimes you have to get in your drone of life and look down from a different perspective to work out what's wrong and how to change it. And I think that's incredibly important, but it's something that very few people can do by themselves. And this is why sometimes you need to reach out and say, can you help, please?
Going back to that then, and coming from the experience that you've had personally and professionally, what do you feel like are the things that we can do to look out for those red flags for our colleagues, for our friends, for our loved ones? What are the things that we're looking for that we go, actually, we could proactively step in and say, do you need help? We could be that Australian on the beach.
Sadly, a lot of the people who commit suicide have no outward signs of being depressed. And I find that incredibly sad. There was someone quite recently who pulled the trigger on themselves, a young chap, and no one in the family knew there was anything wrong. And so for them, there was no outward signs, but there was the stuff bubbling away. If people start getting quiet, if people start backing out of social occasions for no particular reason, if people aren't laughing as much and they're beginning to close the doors, that's the time when you actually need to say, okay, guys, come on, what's going on? But do it in a way that's not judgmental. To say, mate, look, I'm here for you. I know you probably don't want to talk, but I've noticed and I'm worried about you because I love you. It doesn't mean I want to have your babies, but it means I love you as a friend. Because what happens is people, when they get into a depressed or anxious situation, they have so much information coming into their mind that they go into overwhelm, start shutting down. So in your house, for example, if you keep blowing a trip switch on your electrics, you're going to turn off all the plug sockets and turn everything back on. And one by one, you'll turn them back on to find out what it is that's tripping the switch. And it's normally the toaster or the kettle. And you say, okay, fine, I'll get a new toaster and kettle. People don't know how to do this themselves. So you have to start talking about different areas of their lives. And there was a lovely little lad last summer, and I was walking down to my car, having been at work, and he was sitting on the park bench, and he was sitting like this. And something said stop, so I stopped and just sat next door, and he looked at me and looked at the ground. He went, and I said, life's shit, isn't it? And he went, yeah. And I said, what sort of day have you had? And he started talking. And I said, funny enough, I'm a therapist. Can I spend 5 minutes with you? He said, yeah, of course you can. And he started telling me that he was being bullied at school, and his father, I tried to open up to his father, and his father had called him a wuss. No one's going to bully my son, etc., etc. And I can understand how parents can sometimes not be there for their children because they want their children to be like them. And they think if they come down to the upset level of their childhood that they're being weak. No, they're not. You want to shower your kids with love. You want to protect them as much as you can. And there was just a miscommunication. And this kid felt that he was letting the whole family down. And it was really getting him down so much to the point where he was unable to revise properly. Therefore, he just, that afternoon, they'd had tests from a pre-exam exam. And he was at the bottom of the class. And everyone laughed at him. When you're feeling a bit deflated, that's the last thing you want. And I said, well, fine. So next time, be top. How do I do that? And I said, just getting off your ass and doing it. And he went, oh. I said, what were you like 6 months ago? Well, 6 months ago, I could do anything. I said, fine, close your eyes. So he closed his eyes. And I said, right, go and ask that 6 month for you for help. And he left, we shook hands at the end of it. And, he was smiling and off he went. And often it takes some small intervention of just being there. But it's very easy for me because I've been trained in it.
Yeah, absolutely. You recognize it.
Because 78% of all communication is nonverbal. You can walk down past someone in the street and you go, oh, I didn't like them.
So what are some of the questions that we can ask ourselves then when we find ourselves, we know that we're off right, there's something is tripping and we don't know what it is. What kinds of questions can we ask ourselves to help direct us?
First of all, I would ask is, who can I talk to? Who will be able to help me through this? That's the first thing I ask. When I've had problems in the past, if you internalize them, they become toxic. First thing I do in myself now, I just say, right, okay, who can help me? And it's often not a therapist. It's just somebody I just want to talk to, because sometimes you just need to get it out there. Another thing you can do is take some exercise. Like go for a run. Yeah, if you're a little bit pent up and a little bit peed off with life, find some pillows and beat the living daylights out of bed. Get it out, and you're going to feel a lot better. Now, go down to a boxing place, whatever. Something like that. Just take some exercise, and the exercise will not only release happy endorphins, but it will start removing all the blockages that you have inside you.
I think that phrase is really an important one, is that sense of removing the blockages, removing barriers that you don't realize are there, removing beliefs. I think that ties really neatly in with why we've called this podcast what it is in terms of freedom through fitness. Now, I know that fitness means a different thing to different people, but that sense of freeing yourself through fitness, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means getting mind, body, and spirit in balance. As I think I said a few minutes ago, you could be a really fit person, but if your head's not in the right space, you feel useless. And if your head is in the right place and your body's not, you're going to feel heavy and stuck. Getting everything in balance. I'm a great believer in meditation, and I teach people a very simple meditation, which I learned in Malaysia many, many moons ago. And it takes 2 minutes, and it just allows people just to relax, because we live in what I call the snow globe world. Snow globe, you shake it and you've got all these little colourful things floating around, whether it's snow or tinsel or whatever it is inside the snow globe. As soon as you put the snow globe down, everything settles. And once it's settled, your mind can go, oh, right, keep rubbish, keep, ooh, rubbish, keep. And it starts then going through all the stuff that's going around your head, because we have so many things on our mind that we go into that overwhelm. So in order to keep yourself mentally fit, of getting into some form of meditation, some form of relaxation, and just allow everything to stop. Yeah, I was talking the other day to someone, said, well, Piers, I feel as if I'm spinning plates all over the place. And if I stop spinning plates, they're all going to fall. I'm like, okay. So what happens if we take the plates off and clean them and stack them? Can I do that? I said, of course you can. I mean, that's what we did mentally. Yeah, I said, okay, fine. When we went through this visualization, she was doing it. She said, I've never felt so relaxed in my life.
Is that unburdening? It's accepting that you don't have to take on the responsibilities that you have told yourself that you do.
Yeah. So it's all about letting go of anything that's holding you back. And it's easier said than done.
And as you said before, we're very good at as coaches, knowing the theory and putting it in place is two different things. And having somebody who can help you see a different perspective and hold you accountable is often the first step for someone to get onto that better path.
I've this lovely little lad I'm working with. Well, he's not that little, he's quite large, but a lovely chap I've been working with recently. And I see him now once every 6 weeks just for a booster because he wants a booster. And he says, yeah, I've got Piers, therefore I'm all right.
He's grounded.
Absolutely. And that's his thing. He said, yeah, I've got to, I'm gonna have a Piers boost. And sometimes it's on Zoom, sometimes it's face to face. He'll come to my clinic. And he said, that Piers, he said, excuse me, he said, you've got all your life together. And I said, look, yeah, right. He said, so what do you do? And I said, well, I've got my own version of me. I go and see. I've got people I work with. Some are really good and some I've tried in the past are absolute rubbish. But you've got to find the right person to work with you, to support you, to help you. He said, so you've got your own peers? And I went, yeah. And he said, that's so cool.
I've had coaches. I've had physical fitness coaches for, perhaps 15, 18 years because you can't know it all and you can't hold yourself to account for everything. Yeah. And having somebody who cares as much, if sometimes not more than you do, it's such a powerful thing. So having talked about the programs that you're running, the Out of the Darkness initiative that you've launched recently, if people listening feel that they really identify with either being themselves in a situation where they actually think, some of those red flags that he talked about, some of those feelings, those actions I'm going through, or whether they have a loved one that they would like to support, how can they get involved with this project?
The easiest thing to do is if you log on to, I'm on LinkedIn as Piers Day, and that's Piers, not as Piers Brosnan as everyone spelled it. I hate to say this, I'm spelt the same as Piers Morgan. I want to be associated with it, but that's the way you spell Piers. If you go onto piersday.com and the Out of the Darkness is literally in the process of being launched at the moment. I think there's a holding page on the internet, outofthedarkness.co.uk, but that's not live yet. If anyone wants to talk to me about it, send me a WhatsApp or a message fill the form in on the piersday.com and I will answer them as quick as I can. I normally talk to people in the evenings because during the day I tend to work. So it's much easier to talk to people at a time when they can relax as well. There is help out there. That's the whole thing. It really makes me feel sad quite often when people don't know there is help out there.
Well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and also with your experiences. I really feel like that will have spoken to a lot of people who needed speaking to and needed to have their mind opened that the help is available out there. So I really appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you again at some point soon.
We're good.
That's it for today's episode of Freedom Through Fitness. I hope you're leaving this conversation feeling inspired, encouraged, and maybe just a little more connected with the version of yourself that you're working toward. One that moves with confidence, lives with more energy, and chooses strength on your own terms. If you're ready to take that next step, don't forget, the Focused PT team is here to support you. You can book a free discovery call right now at freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk. No pressure. Just a real conversation about what your freedom through fitness could look like. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, tag us at Focused PT UK, or leave a quick review. It helps us reach more people and keep these powerful conversations going. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Meg Batchelor, and I'll see you next time.